The truth matters because it underpins trust, and trust is the fabric of our social relationships. But what happens when that trust is eroded? What happens when someone deceives you? Well, you must become adept at identifying the signs of deception, because lies are a disintegration of reality, and you need to spot them to protect your integrity. So I'm going to walk you through 5 key signs that someone is lying to you and explain why these behaviors emerge. When someone is lying, inconsistencies in their story become one of the most telling signs. Lies, by their very nature, are constructions of the imagination. Unlike the truth, which is grounded in actual events and experiences, lies require effort to fabricate and maintain. This artificiality makes lies fragile. They often lack the internal coherence that truth inherently possesses. A liar must work to build and sustain a narrative that fits the context, aligns with past statements, and withstands scrutiny. However, this process is imperfect, and the inconsistencies within their story can betray them. To detect these inconsistencies, one must pay careful attention to the details being presented. People who tell the truth are naturally consistent because their account stems from memory. They don't need to think about aligning their statements with some fabricated reality. They are simply recounting what happened. A liar, on the other hand, is juggling multiple elements at once: what they've already said, what they think the listener knows, and how to present the lie convincingly. This mental strain often results in contradictions or gaps in their story. These inconsistencies can appear in various forms. For instance, a person might provide different versions of the same event when asked about it at different times. They may also struggle to maintain the timeline of their story or forget details they previously emphasized. Sometimes they will add new information that seems unnecessary or overly elaborate, hoping to bolster their credibility but inadvertently drawing attention to the lie. It's also important to recognize that inconsistencies can arise in tone or emotional response. A truthful person typically exhibits emotions that align naturally with their narrative. They might express frustration, sadness, or excitement when recalling significant events. Liars, however, might struggle to match their emotions to the fabricated story. For example, someone might claim to be devastated about a particular situation but fail to display the corresponding emotional weight when discussing it. This emotional mismatch often signals dishonesty. The challenge for the observer is to remain attentive and inquisitive without appearing accusatory. Ask clarifying questions and pay attention to how the person responds. Does their explanation add clarity, or does it introduce more confusion? Are they repeating details verbatim as if rehearsed, or are they struggling to recall their own statements? While truth tellers generally welcome questions and respond without hesitation, liars may become defensive or attempt to steer the conversation away from the topic. The key to spotting these inconsistencies is patience and a sharp focus on the nuances of communication. Deceptive individuals often rely on the assumption that others won't notice the small contradictions in their story. By actively listening and comparing statements over time, you can uncover the cracks in their narrative. Once identified, these inconsistencies serve as valuable indicators of dishonesty, enabling you to question the validity of the story being presented. Ultimately, the ability to detect inconsistencies in someone's account isn't just about uncovering lies. It's a skill that sharpens your perception and strengthens your understanding of human behavior. Truth stands firm under scrutiny, while lies falter when closely examined. Unnatural body language is a significant indicator of deception, as the body often betrays what the mind attempts to conceal. When someone lies, their body language may exhibit subtle, yet telling signs of discomfort, tension, or incongruence with their spoken words. This occurs because lying creates a mental and emotional conflict. The act of fabricating a falsehood requires cognitive effort, which disrupts the natural flow of communication and often manifests physically. Recognizing these physical cues requires careful observation and an understanding of how the body reacts under stress. One common indicator of lying is fidgeting or repetitive gestures. These movements often stem from the anxiety that arises when a person attempts to deceive. A liar might play with their hands, touch their face, or adjust their clothing, behaviors that serve as physical outlets for the internal tension they feel. These actions are usually unconscious, meaning the individual may not even be aware they're doing them. While such gestures don't always signify dishonesty, they can also result from nervousness or distraction. They become more telling when paired with other signs of incongruence. Another key physical clue is the alignment or lack thereof between verbal statements and nonverbal expressions. When people tell the truth, their body language naturally supports their words. For example, if someone is genuinely happy about a situation, their smile and posture will reinforce that sentiment. In contrast, a liar may struggle to synchronize their physical expressions with their claims. They might force a smile that doesn't reach their eyes, nod inappropriately, or display a mismatch between their tone and body language. These subtle misalignments can reveal the underlying dissonance between what they say and what they truly feel. A liar may also adopt defensive postures as they attempt to protect themselves from scrutiny. Crossed arms, a closed-off stance, or turning slightly away from the person they're speaking to can signal discomfort or an attempt to shield themselves. While these behaviors aren't definitive proof of dishonesty, they often indicate unease. Similarly, a person who avoids physical contact, such as declining a handshake or maintaining excessive physical distance, may subconsciously be distancing themselves from their deceit. On the other hand, some liars overcompensate by trying to appear overly confident or in control. They might adopt exaggerated gestures, maintain unusually prolonged eye contact, or attempt to project an air of certainty. This behavior often stems from the misconception that looking too honest will prevent suspicion. However, this overcompensation can come across as unnatural, especially when combined with other indicators of deception. The key to interpreting body language as a sign of dishonesty is context. A single gesture or movement taken in isolation is rarely enough to identify a lie. Instead, it's essential to look for patterns and clusters of behavior that suggest incongruence or discomfort. When someone's body language consistently contradicts their words, it often indicates that they're not being truthful. By paying close attention to these nonverbal cues, you can gain valuable insights into the authenticity of a person's intentions and the integrity of their statements. When someone is lying, overcompensation becomes a common behavior as they attempt to convince others of their credibility. Lying creates an inherent tension between the truth and the fabricated story, which often leads the liar to feel uncertain about whether their deception is convincing. This uncertainty can manifest as an excessive effort to appear truthful, and this overcompensation is one of the clearest behavioral patterns associated with dishonesty. One way liars overcompensate is by providing an overwhelming amount of detail. A truthful person typically recounts events in a straightforward manner, sharing only what is necessary and relevant. They rely on memory, which naturally prioritizes important details while omitting trivial ones. In contrast, a liar often feels compelled to embellish their story with unnecessary specifics. They might include minute details about times, places, or objects that seem irrelevant to the main point. This tactic is intended to make the fabricated narrative appear authentic, but it can have the opposite effect. The sheer volume of detail can feel unnatural, and upon closer inspection, these added elements may lack coherence or significance. Another way liars overcompensate is through exaggerated emotional displays. They may amplify their reactions to align with what they think others expect in a given situation. For example, they might feign outrage when accused, dramatically asserting their innocence or expressing extreme distress. These emotional displays are intended to deflect suspicion and elicit sympathy. However, genuine emotions are usually proportional and nuanced, while exaggerated ones can come across as theatrical or forced. Observing these exaggerated responses alongside other indicators of dishonesty can reveal the underlying deception. Liars may also resort to repeated affirmations of their honesty, often without being prompted. They might frequently say things like, "I swear I'm telling the truth," or "Why would I lie to you?" These statements serve as a psychological tool to reinforce their credibility. However, someone who is genuinely truthful typically feels no need to emphasize their honesty repeatedly. Truth stands on its own, while lies require constant reinforcement. Additionally, liars might overcompensate by trying to control the conversation. They could dominate the discussion, speaking at length to prevent others from asking probing questions. Alternatively, they might strategically steer the topic away from areas that could expose their lie. This form of conversational overcompensation reflects their fear of being caught and their need to maintain control over the narrative. The key to recognizing overcompensation is understanding that truth is simple and requires no embellishment. A person who over-explains, reacts disproportionately, or repeatedly asserts their honesty may be revealing more about their internal struggle with deception than they intend. While each of these behaviors on its own might not prove dishonesty, their presence in combination or alongside other signs of lying becomes significant. By staying attuned to the ways people overcompensate when they feel vulnerable or exposed, you can gain a clearer understanding of their true intentions. Overcompensation is not just a sign of dishonesty, it's a window into the psychological pressure of maintaining a lie. Recognizing it requires careful observation and a willingness to trust your instincts when something feels off. Eye contact is a complex and telling aspect of human communication, and it often becomes a significant indicator when someone is lying. Liars frequently exhibit abnormal patterns of eye contact, either avoiding it entirely or maintaining an unnatural level of intensity. These behaviors arise from the internal conflict and anxiety that come with dishonesty, as well as their attempts to manage how others perceive them. Recognizing these eye-related cues requires careful observation and an understanding of how genuine communication typically unfolds. When someone is lying, they may avoid eye contact because of discomfort or guilt. Looking someone in the eye can feel exposing, as if the truth could be inadvertently revealed through their gaze. This avoidance is often subconscious, reflecting their desire to distance themselves from the situation. Averting the eyes, looking down, or frequently glancing away can indicate that a person is struggling to maintain their composure under the pressure of their deception. However, it's important to note that some people naturally avoid eye contact due to shyness or cultural norms, so this behavior alone is not definitive proof of lying. On the other hand, liars may overcompensate by maintaining excessive eye contact. This behavior stems from the belief that unwavering eye contact conveys honesty and confidence. In their effort to appear credible, they may stare more than is typical, creating a sense of intensity that can feel unnatural or even uncomfortable. Genuine eye contact occurs organically and includes natural breaks as the person thinks or processes the conversation. A liar's prolonged and deliberate gaze often lacks these natural rhythms, revealing an attempt to control the impression they're making. Another key factor to observe is the synchronization between eye contact and other aspects of communication, such as facial expressions and verbal statements. When someone tells the truth, their eye contact tends to align with their emotions and tone of voice. For example, when expressing regret or sadness, their eyes may momentarily drop, reflecting their internal state. Liars, however, might struggle to align their eye behavior with their narrative, resulting in mismatches. They might hold eye contact too rigidly while delivering a false apology, or they might fail to meet your gaze when emphasizing a point that should carry emotional weight. Rapid changes in eye behavior can also be revealing. A liar might shift from avoiding eye contact to staring intensely if they sense they're being scrutinized. These abrupt changes often signal their internal struggle to manage their appearance of honesty. Similarly, their blink rate can become erratic, increasing due to anxiety or decreasing as they consciously suppress the behavior. To effectively interpret eye contact as a sign of deception, context is crucial. One must consider the individual's baseline behavior and cultural background, as well as other verbal and nonverbal cues. While irregularities in eye contact alone may not confirm a lie, they often serve as an important piece of the puzzle when combined with other indicators of dishonesty. Understanding these nuances allows you to discern the truth with greater accuracy, helping you navigate interactions with clarity and confidence. Emotional mismatches are one of the most revealing signs that someone may be lying. When a person tells the truth, their emotions typically align naturally with the content of their words and the context of the situation. In contrast, a liar often struggles to generate a believable emotional response, resulting in reactions that feel inappropriate, exaggerated, or disconnected from the narrative they're presenting. This incongruence arises because fabricating a story is cognitively demanding, leaving little room to authentically replicate the subtleties of genuine emotion. One common form of emotional mismatch is the absence of expected emotion. For instance, if someone is describing a traumatic or upsetting event, you would anticipate them to exhibit signs of sadness, distress, or anger. When these emotions are missing or appear muted, it can indicate that the person is fabricating the story. Their emotional detachment may stem from the fact that they lack a real connection to the event they're describing, making it difficult to convincingly replicate the appropriate feelings. Conversely, liars may overcompensate by displaying exaggerated emotions. They might amplify their reactions, such as feigning outrage, overwhelming sadness, or dramatic enthusiasm in an attempt to appear authentic. This overreaction is often an effort to deflect suspicion by appealing to the listener's empathy or convincing them of the speaker's sincerity. However, exaggerated emotions frequently feel performative rather than natural, lacking the subtle nuances of genuine emotional expression. Timing also plays a crucial role in identifying emotional mismatches. Authentic emotions tend to emerge organically and are synchronized with the person's words. For example, a genuine laugh occurs immediately in response to humor, and tears appear as a natural progression of sadness. When emotions are delayed, forced, or out of sync with the narrative, it can signal dishonesty. A person might pause awkwardly before expressing an emotion or display a reaction that doesn't match the emotional gravity of what they've just said. This disconnect suggests they're consciously attempting to insert emotion into their story rather than experiencing it genuinely. Another aspect of emotional mismatches is inconsistency across interactions. A liar may display different emotional responses to the same event, depending on the audience or context. For example, they might describe a situation with indifference in one instance and with exaggerated emotion in another. This variability can reveal that their narrative lacks an authentic emotional foundation, as it's not grounded in a real experience. It's also important to consider microexpressions, brief, involuntary facial expressions that reflect a person's true emotions. Even when someone is trying to fabricate a feeling, microexpressions can betray their underlying emotional state. For example, a fleeting look of guilt or fear might surface when someone is lying, even if they are attempting to appear calm or confident. Detecting emotional mismatches requires careful observation and a deep understanding of how emotions are typically expressed. While no single sign is definitive proof of dishonesty, inconsistencies between a person's emotions and their story are often strong indicators that something is amiss. By paying attention to these mismatches, you can uncover the subtle signs of deception and make more informed judgments about the truthfulness of their statements. Understanding these signs isn't about becoming cynical or mistrusting everyone you meet. It's about developing your capacity for discernment, and that's important because when you can discern truth from lies, you're better equipped to navigate the world with integrity. And let me add this, don't just use this knowledge to catch others in their lies. Use it to reflect on your own relationship with the truth. Are you being honest with yourself, with others? If you want to confront deception in the world, start by confronting it within. The truth, my friends, is not just a practical tool, it's a moral necessity. If you can master the art of recognizing lies while holding fast to your own integrity, you will not only protect yourself, but also inspire others to do the same.